It's clear we're not getting all the information. It's clear something's off here. The first person, the old man, I don't even know why he was grabbed. And I kind of feel like that's kind of like what's going on now with the Charlie Kirk case. I don't think people are watching because they're looking for justice. I don't think people are watching because they're really interested in whether or not they have the right person or not. We just want to see who's going to get away with it.
It's starting to look less like a tragic story and more like a scene straight out of a political thriller, the kind of thing that would usually be whispered about in back rooms instead of blasted all over social media. The death of Charlie Kirk was supposed to be tragic but simple, yet now it feels like we've stumbled into a rabbit hole filled with billionaires, cover-ups, and shady government moves. Jaguar Wright, known for exposing the darkest corners of the entertainment world, just added her voice to Candace Owens' claims that this wasn't just a random act of violence, it was a silencing. And suddenly, everyone who dismissed this as wild speculation is starting to lean in closer, because when someone like Jaguar starts dropping hints, you know there's fire behind the smoke. People are now wondering if Charlie's death was less about bad luck and more about powerful people making sure he could never open his mouth again. Before we dig into these shocking rumors and the names that are being whispered in the shadows, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop your thoughts in the comments because this story is about to get messy, and I need to know where you stand.
There's no way we are going to this event now. There's a 0% chance. First and foremost, why are you saying anybody can go to it? You just buy a ticket to the event, and you're all working to try to get me to confirm that I'm going. And you're doing this as if you're trying to push my buttons and be like, we got to make her get into her ego so she shows up and posts it on social media. Nope, actually, while I'm attacking the feds, maybe not going to a public event, which the feds are organizing, is probably a very good idea. I'm good. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna listen to Power on my headphones and go see Ye. How's that for a memorial for Charlie Kirk? That feels like the right thing for me to do.
Candace Owens had been crying foul from the start, claiming the FBI took over the investigation way too quickly, before local authorities even had a chance to do their job. At first, people brushed her off, saying she was being dramatic, but the strange details she pointed out kept stacking up. Why was every piece of potential evidence kept so quiet? Why weren't images or surveillance footage released when the internet has solved hundreds of cases faster than the feds ever could? Candace kept insisting that the real reason was because powerful names were involved, names that couldn't risk exposure.
He had a bulletproof vest that might have caught the exit, really? That's interesting. That's definitely an interesting point of view. But what kind of bulletproof vest are you talking about? Because usually bulletproof vests, they cover your front, they cover your back. There's points of vulnerability on the sides usually. I haven't seen too many. I mean, was he wearing hardcore Kevlar? Fully body casted? That's wild. Nobody mentioned that yet. Military grade. He was wearing military grade. I don't know. It's funny. Seems like they might have mentioned that.
Then comes Jaguar, echoing those same suspicions and promising to shine a light on the kind of billionaires who are usually untouchable. The gossip is spreading that this wasn't just a cover-up, it was a strategic takedown meant to send a message to anyone else who might step out of line. What's making this even spicier are the whispers about the billionaires Charlie supposedly clashed with in the weeks leading up to his death. Rumor has it he refused to play ball with certain donors, even going as far as rejecting pressure to ban controversial figures from his events. One name in particular keeps circulating in online forums, supposedly a mega donor with ties to political media empires, and the claim is that Charlie stood firm, saying he wouldn't sell out his platform. That resistance may have cost him more than sponsorships, it may have painted a target on his back. Jaguar hinted that these men aren't just wealthy, they're the type of billionaires who think they own movements, politicians, even narratives that shape the culture. So when someone refuses to play their game, there are consequences. And let's not forget.
But I don't want to even get into the whole thing with the GUN being dismantled, the guy jumping off of the roof without the, weapon. This whole thing looks fishy. And that's why I said, I always say this, I say I'd rather get all the information first, then make a comment. But But yeah, it's just real fishy. Of course, they say
We have a right to question the validity of it. And it's got to pass the smell test. There's something wrong with all of this. And everyone is starting to pick it out, piece by piece, thread by thread. Everyone is starting to see something's wrong here. The question is, why?
Candace claimed Charlie was on the verge of losing his biggest financial backer just days before his death. Imagine the pressure he must have been under. Threats whispered in private, money dangling in front of him, and then suddenly he's gone. That's the kind of messy detail that makes people believe this wasn't random. The official story has more holes than Swiss cheese, and that's exactly why the public is side-eyeing every press release. The feds were quick to point fingers at a young suspect, someone whose own grandmother swore had never fired a gun in his life. She described him as quiet, not violent, and politically aligned with Charlie's world. None of it added up, but then almost too conveniently, the feds leaked text messages that supposedly showed him confessing in detail. These texts were like something out of a badly written crime show: engraved bullets, exact coordinates of a weapon dump, and a sudden uncharacteristic confession to a roommate. Too clean, too scripted, and too perfectly aligned with what investigators wanted to hear. People online immediately started whispering that those texts were planted, that they weren't real conversations but fabricated evidence to give the FBI a neat package to hand to the public. Gossip pages began dissecting screenshots, pointing out inconsistencies in the timestamps and the phrasing, making the narrative look even more suspicious. Then there's the fact that Jaguar Wright went a step further, suggesting the FBI itself might be protecting the billionaires who allegedly wanted Charlie out of the way. According to her, the reason evidence isn't adding up is because it was never meant to. It's being carefully crafted to make the story look believable to those who don't question authority. But Jaguar doesn't just hint, she goes in. On her podcast, she laughed at the idea of the suspect wearing military-grade body armor and questioned how details like that could just casually appear in reports. She and her guests mocked the inconsistencies, like the supposed rooftop jump, the dismantled gun, and the ever-changing person of interest list that made the investigation feel more like improv theater than a serious case. Every time she raised a point, it just made people think harder about how sloppy the official story looks and how desperate it feels, like the feds needed a scapegoat but didn't care if the story actually made sense. What shocked fans even more was Jaguar admitting she skipped Charlie's memorial because she feared for her life. Think about that. A high-profile commentator who constantly thrives in controversy, suddenly choosing not to show her face at an event because the organizers were the same feds she's been accusing. She openly admitted she believed showing up would be like walking into a trap, like daring the people she's calling out to make her the next headline. Instead, she opted for a private tribute, saying she'd rather listen to music than stand among people she didn't trust. That fear struck a chord with her supporters, who realized that if someone as bold as Jaguar feels unsafe, then maybe there's more to this story than the public has been told. It turned Charlie's memorial into yet another question mark, adding to the sense that this wasn't just a tragic death, it was an event surrounded by manipulation and intimidation. Candace and Jaguar together make a wild combination, two women who aren't afraid to challenge billionaires, government agencies, and mainstream narratives. When one of them speaks, it's controversial enough, but when they both align on a story, people start wondering if maybe the so-called conspiracy isn't a conspiracy at all, but a reality we just aren't supposed to acknowledge. Their partnership in fueling these rumors has turned the situation into a spectacle, with gossip blogs, podcasts, and even celebrity Twitter accounts all buzzing about it. Some celebrities are quietly liking posts about the cover-up, adding fuel to the fire without directly putting their names on the line. It's that quiet support, that subtle engagement, that makes the drama even more intoxicating. Everyone's whispering about it, but only a few are brave enough to say it out loud. And when Jaguar Wright is one of them, it's like someone just cracked open a vault we weren't supposed to see. The more you look at it, the more the contradictions scream for attention. If the FBI really had everything under control, why did the story keep changing? Why were there multiple suspects paraded around like red herrings before the narrative finally landed on one? And why did the feds release statements about radicalization, about Discord servers and dark web affiliations, but then fail to provide any solid proof? Candace called it from day one. She said they'd scrub the servers, that we'd never see the real chats because those chats might expose something bigger. Jaguar backed that up, accusing them of twisting the narrative before her very eyes. Every move the authorities made felt like performance, as if their job wasn't to solve a case but to make sure the truth never leaked. And every time a new inconsistency emerged, fans started whispering again. Maybe Candace wasn't reaching, maybe Jaguar isn't exaggerating, maybe this is the truth nobody wants us to touch. It's not just the facts of the case that make this story scandalous, it's the power dynamics. Charlie Kirk wasn't just some random guy, he was connected, influential, and a thorn in the side of people who don't like opposition. When you're that visible and you refuse to bow to billionaires, it makes sense that pressure builds. Candace hinted that Charlie's last 2 weeks were filled with immense stress, that he was threatened, that he stood his ground and refused to cave. Now add the whispers about him losing donors, being cornered by elites, and refusing to adjust his platform to please them. In Hollywood and politics alike, refusing to play ball with powerful people has consequences. And when you mix influence, money, and pride, the result is often explosive. That's why the theory that billionaires might have orchestrated his silence doesn't sound like fantasy anymore. It sounds like the kind of ugly truth that nobody in power wants exposed. So here we are, left with a story that keeps twisting, a death that doesn't make sense, and two women, Candace Owens and Jaguar Wright, fighting to convince the world that the official narrative is a sham. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong, but what's undeniable is that the cracks in the story are too big to ignore. Each new leak, each new rumor, each new inconsistency has turned this case into a storm of speculation. And the more people gossip, the more pressure builds for answers. Was Charlie Kirk silenced by billionaires? Is the FBI protecting the names of the powerful instead of protecting the public? Or is all of this just the perfect conspiracy theory designed to keep us talking? One thing is certain, the truth isn't lining up with what we've been told, and until it does, the whispers aren't going away anytime soon. What makes this story even harder to shake off is how it mirrors other high-profile cases we've seen before. Anytime a public figure dies under suspicious circumstances, the narrative is eerily similar. Conflicting reports, fast-tracked investigations, and conveniently placed evidence that ties everything up with a bow. People remember how other influential names in entertainment and politics supposedly went down, and the whispers never stopped in those cases either. Fans on forums are already connecting dots, comparing Charlie's story to past scandals where billionaires were rumored to have stepped in to clean things up. It feeds into the belief that history keeps repeating itself, that powerful people play by their own rules, and the rest of us are left to swallow the version of events we're fed. And let's be real, the more we see these patterns, the harder it is not to think Jaguar and Candace might be echoing the kind of truth that no one dares to write down officially. Now the question hanging in the air is, what happens next? If Jaguar really plans to start naming the billionaires she hinted at, the fallout could be explosive. We've seen how quickly the machine works to silence voices that get too close to dangerous truths, and Jaguar has never exactly played it safe. Supporters are bracing for her next move, watching her every post like it's a countdown to a bombshell reveal. But there's also fear that by speaking up, she's painting the same target on her back that Charlie might have had on his. And if she does start dropping names, we're not just talking gossip blogs picking it up, we're talking headlines, lawsuits, and possibly the kind of chaos that shakes both Hollywood and Washington at the same time. Whether you believe the conspiracy or not, one thing is undeniable, the storm around Charlie Kirk's death is only getting louder, and the world is watching to see if this is the moment when the whispers turn into a roar.